we've introduced ourselves. We've dropped our pronouns in there. What I'm get you, no, you know what? Yeah, what I'm gonna get you to do is to, if you have any questions or advice that you have now for yourself, that you've gathered from like the first day of this summit, can you please throw it into the chat right now? Anything someone has said, anything you're feeling, any questions that continue to be important to you right now, could you just like blast the chat with those questions, those thoughts, those quotes, those things you want to remember so you don't forget them. It's a good chance for us to make a little document together of some of what we've already learned, knowing that we might still learn some more. So please just into the chat. Questions, things you want to remember, and or just like one word for what you're feeling right now. Cool, cool, cool. Just keep them coming. If you have more than one, it's all good. Blessed magic, connected, peace, grateful. Seize the day, forgive yourself. Okay. Okay, remember, blessed. I love this. Keep them throwing in. I'm like, we're going to choose a couple later on for very specific reasons. Will the world get better? I'm going to write that one down. Just making notes while you guys keep doing this. Strong. I like these. I love these. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Thank you all very much for throwing all those in. And now I'm going to welcome you to take a look at these links. And just as a reminder, and I will put it into the chat, just jump to different links and see what connects to you, what might even remind you of your questions or other questions that you've seen here. And the links are coming in like time that should have been in the past and isn't yet in the present, and I continue to search for it. And I have sent it to, I sent it to you as well, Jen, no? To save me from myself.
I was looking while you were talking. I don't see him.
You know what? I might have sent it to somebody else. Watch this.
A different Jen. A different Jen.
Okay, I'm gonna like do them one by one real quick.
Yeah, that sounds good.
1, 2. So feel free to click on them as they come, folks. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You always got to offer one from yourself. And then one from, all right, folks, jump into those. I'm going to give us like 5 minutes to jump into whichever ones we want to and to write down lines that snag our attention. Jump into one or many of the links. Write down or note down or copy paste to yourself. Meet myself for the next 4.5 minutes. If anyone has questions, though, you can throw them in the chat or you can speak them out loud. 30 more seconds, 30 more seconds, gentle 30-second warning. Welcome back, everybody. Before we get into what's next, I just want to bless you back with a little bit of what you already shared. Some things we have learned carry here at Kapwa Summit. Seize the day, and when you don't, forgive yourself to your magic. blessed, connected, peace, grateful you are loved, take care of yourselves, strong, be kind to make the world better, resolute, heart work, blessed, remember, breathe, understanding, acceptance with yourself, your history, finish strong, alive, happy to sleep, fighting together and family, make peace to each other, positive, remember, kindness for yourself and others, extending grace. You are the only person who can stop you. That is literally just for y'all. And I did make a couple of random edits on the fly as I read, but what I did was this, I read it backwards. I read it backwards line by line. And that's just from all of you to each other. So that's a good way to begin, I think. You know, it's a good way to begin. I'm going to read to you, and I'm going to see if I can just share my screen for a hot second. Can I share my screen? Do I have that superpower? Let's see.
Yes, you do, Harry. You have all the magical power.
I don't want to stop anyone else's screen share, so I'm going to leave it on there. Cancel. That I made just from your guys's words for this thing. If you go back up in your chat, you're going to just see exactly what I read out loud. Which is the reason that I feel like I'm able to do that is because I am learning radical trust that the group carries everything we need right now, and that I can bring really, really little, which means that I am blessed to just get to like reflect back what folks already have here, and that's what I'm trying to do. So in that reflection, I also did a reading with a couple of folks who are going to be reading to you later. I'm going to leave part of that reading just for them, and I'm going to share another reading for everybody here. And that reading is today's date being 5 plus 9, 19, which is 5 plus 1 plus 9 plus 20, which is 2 plus 0, which is still 2 plus 2 plus 2. And that adds up to 21. And the wild ass thing, and I did not plan this at all, is that in the Kapwa Tarot by Janalyn Umipig, that adds up to 21, and the number for 21, or the meaning of 21, is Kapwa, the world. So I'm just going to read to you a little piece here. Kapwa is the lesson, the value, the truth of the shared self, the self in all other beings and things. It takes deep investment and hard, sustained work in self-healing and preservation to arise to any chapter in your life where you see yourself and can give gratitude and praise for who you are, which is what I just saw y'all do, so thank you for that. The rising of our comrades, our kin, our chosen family, our life partners, and the paths we walk only means our rising will not be alone. Here is no separation. Here, there is only a deep belonging to each other. Mark the paste. Yes, so there's that for you to hold. Just wanted to share that piece for the day. And then I have more questions. In fact, what I'm going to do is just pull a couple of the moments from earlier, some of the questions that we have. And I'm going to ask you all to go back to the things that you wrote down and answer these questions for each other. So, based on the words you already wrote down from the readings that we shared and made note of, you can scroll in the chat. You can also go back to wherever your stuff is at. Help me answer these questions. Question 1. How do we fight for justice? So what I'm going to get you to do is to answer that question, to go back into the words that we've already shared with each other, the quotations that you and other people already shared. They might already they're up here in the chat. And I want us to answer the question, how do we fight for justice? And I will give one response, for example, from above, which is like that. So feel free to just go up ahead and let's get like at least 3 or 4 responses to each questions. Yeah, like that. Thanks for modeling, Jen. I'd love to see a couple more. How do we fight for justice? With empathy, word, word, word. Yes. Yes, I love this. Love this. Let's get like a couple more out there. And then all right, I'm ready for our next question. My next question from your guys' questions is, what does liberation mean? So once again, please go back to those, to what's already been written down. You can also jump back to those poems. Like if one of the poems really like struck for you, yeah, that's right. That's absolutely true. You know, you can jump back to the poems themselves and like pull more lines from those poems just to answer these questions. Just gonna wait for a few more folks to give an answer, especially you haven't given one in a little minute. It's your turn coming through. All right, I'm waiting for 1 or 2 more. I'm going to put the next question in and answer these questions. And Caitlin or Jen, give me a heads up if I'm like coming close to a 5-minute warning, okay? Next question. Word Macy, I do agree that it feels relaxing and liberating. What is acceptance? Feel free again, jump up in the chat or go back to what you have said to each other or go back to one of the poems that you are looking for. We have looked at. Bring back nothing. Looking for 1 or 2 more. For 1 or 2 more. And then one final question. One final question. I'm ready. One final question. And if we can get everybody to put one answer in for this question, please. Actually, no, forget it. I'm wrong. The final question that links to that previous question is, let's do our own redefinition together here in this group. What is Kapwa? Looking for one response from like pretty much everybody in here, or at least in the next like 3 minutes. Can scroll, can jump to the poems, can look back at what you and your homies have already said today. A few more, folks, a few more. I'm not going to call names. I'm just going to hope a few more come out here. Yeah, word. You can answer yourself. You can look. The question for folks who just showed up is, what is Kapwa? And you can actually look back in the chat. You can define it for yourself. And I'm going to look for like 3 more responses, and then we're going to stop. Three more responses. Stop it. But I need 3 though. I need 3. Here's 1. I need 2 more. My name is Hari and I'm waiting. That's right. Yeah. All right. We'll pause here. Thank you all for participating in whatever level you did. I'm looking forward to where we're at next. This is my impromptu thank you for helping me learn what seems to be justice, liberation, Kapwa. Praise the ancestors, empathy for all, recognition of ourselves and others, and respect for ourselves and others, the multicultural community inner self that is shared with others, embracing our shared identity. What is Kapwa? Peace and serendipity, accept everyone for who they are, community and shared humanity. Come on, aloha, you are finally home. Family, it is acceptance and celebration of our uniqueness. Give gratitude and praise for who you are. You are loved. Take care of yourselves, palm to palm. Radiant Magakasama. This is what joy looks like. Ourselves and everybody around us. A place of acceptance, embracing solidarity. I have your back. You have mine. Self in other. Self in the other. What is Kapwa history? Family. How do we make peace with when self arrives at your door? Even the thief. Wish peace upon every stranger who is in a healing process. An embrace sent deep in the body, a whirring, prune back nothing. Believe like us, talk like us, look like us, hold hands with the ones who don't. This is the self-healing. Ask any of us where it really hurts. Hold space for yourself and for others. The word heart. New versions of the Bible will use what is acceptance in a moment of family and relaxation, relaxing and liberating to me, freedom pooling in a bed of gauze. Sounds like my sister closing the mosquito net. I am new versions of the Bible, using the word heart, the part my broom can't sweep away. Be what binds me to salt, its calling, my wonderment. Let it have the freedom to embrace our true selves, breathing without obstruction, sustained work in self-healing and preservations, magakasama, holding hands, unafraid, fighting together, unfurling into a monumental sea, each of us a river, a rush, a dream, who dances on a soapy floor, being free, only guts, no glorified organ, no heroic heart. What does liberation mean? Radical trust with our words, others' bravery to share who we are with mga kasama. Nothing wants to suffer. Work together. Dances from now before names, heritage and practice are traditional. Celebrate our culture, embrace with empathy. Look like us, don't. Hold hands with the ones who, as a rice seedling, fight for justice. Our rising will not be alone. Thank you. That's you.
Oh my gosh, it's like, it's too quiet in here. I think we all want to be like, "Woo!" Does anyone want to like do a cacophony of unmuted mics? I think so. Okay, it's just me.
No, let's do it.
Appreciate you all.
So amazing. Thank you so much, Hari. I think that is the perfect segue into the honor scholars who are going to do their teaching. Does that sound pretty good? Caitlin, putting me on blast in the chat, even though I already did, but it's fine. I told you Hari was going to be amazing, and he is. Oh my gosh, I actually don't know how to say after this. So thank you. That was just incredible.
Let me hop on for a hot second.
Yes, okay, thank you.
I'm super grateful to share this time with all of you. I'm really stunned by what came. It was, as it always is, but this time a special surprise. So would you all do me a favor and let's take a second and kind of like breathe that in, the truth of what you have taught each other today about justice, liberation, Kapwa. So let's just take a second to breathe. If you will, put both your feet firmly on the ground, wherever you're at. And take your hands and put one here and one on top of the other one. And just take like 3 good breaths. 1, to breathe out the storm. 2, to breathe in the magic that you are. And 3, relief. Relief. Thank you. I'm grateful to share time with you.
All right. Thank you so much, Hari. Beautiful as always. We have it taped or recorded so that we can re-listen and get re-immersed in that magic. Yeah, so I'm going to turn it over now to Caitlin B, Victor, Ray, Pia, Derek, and I think you guys you're all ready, right? All right.
There's so much pressure now after going after Hari.
I know, now I was thinking about it, it's like, oh, that's the opposite. But no, I think he smoothed it out for you.
You guys are gonna do great. Don't worry about it.
Oh, thanks, Sebastian.
Okay, let me just share my screen. Okay. Does everything look good? Okay, so thank you again to Hari for creating a very good energy in our Zoom today. So hello everyone, welcome to day 2 of the Kapwa Scholars Hybrid Summit 2022. For my group and I's teaching, we will be discussing what we call finding home, stories of immigration, specifically stories of those coming to America. And before we dive deeper on that discussion, I would like you to properly meet my group and I.
Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlin Bowie. I'm a first-year student at San Diego Mesa College. I'm currently majoring in business administration, and I'm part of the Kapwa 3 cohort honors crew.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's summit. My name is Derek Pham, and I am also part of cohort 3 of Kapwa.
Hi again. My name is Opiana Napati. I'm also a first year and business administration major here at Mesa, and I'm also part of Kapwa 3 cohorts honors crew.
Hi, my name is Victor. I'll be majoring in computer science, and I'm also a Kapwa 3 honors student.
And my name is Raylene Mencia. You guys can call me Ray. I'm also a first year student here at Mesa College, majoring in construction management, and I'm also part of the Kapwa 3 cohort honors crew. So before we dive into all of the information, we just wanted to talk to you guys first, and if you guys can go to this Padlet, either scan the QR code or click on the link in the chat. We just want to hear from you guys what immigration means to you, and if you're comfortable, please share your immigration story or a story that is close to you. Yes, of course. So we'll just be waiting for just a couple just to get us started. Yeah.
And also don't hesitate to unmute or leave a comment in the, what's it called, in the Zoom as well. We'll be responding to them too.
So I'll just be reading a few of these responses. Let's see. One of them, I'm a first generation. Immigration means that my dad has sacrificed closeness with his family to pursue a better life. Some other ones. Immigration was made possible through the sacrifice of Arevalo fighting as a Philippine scout of World War II, the U.S. surviving the Platoon Death March and internment camps. Feel free to continue adding more responses. Yeah, we'll be moving on.
So we will be addressing the multiple aspects that intertwine with Asian immigration, and we divided it into 5 different concepts, which include history of immigration, reasons for immigrating, journey to America, struggles faced in America, and yellow face.
So to start off this presentation, I'll be going through a brief history of Asian immigration to the United States, starting off with the gold rush and the transcontinental railroad as the first wave of immigration. The first major wave of Asian immigration to the continental United States occurred primarily on the West Coast during the California gold rush, starting in the 1850s. This wave of immigration was mainly Chinese. The Chinese population grew rapidly, going from less than 400 inhabitants in 1848 to 25,000 by 1852. Most Chinese immigrants in California were from the Guangdong province, China. They saw opportunity in the young United States and hoped to earn wealth to send back to their families in China. Asian immigrants were sought not only in California, but also across the entire US as they filled the high demand for cheap labor in mines, factories, and on the transcontinental railroad. Some plantation owners in the South sought Chinese labor as a cheap means to replace the free labor of slavery that was lost. Chinese laborers generally arrived in California with the help of brokers in Hong Kong and other port cities under the credit ticket system, where they would pay back money loaned from brokers with the wages earned here in America. In addition to laborers, merchants also immigrated from China, opening businesses and stores, including those that would later form Chinatowns. The late 1800s. In the 1860s and 1870s, hostility towards Asian immigrants in the continental United States grew and intensified due to their growing presence in the labor force, with the formation of organizations such as the Asiatic Exclusion League, which opposed and aimed to prevent Asian immigration. East Asian immigrants, particularly Chinese Americans, who composed the majority of the population on the mainland, were seen as the quote unquote yellow peril and suffered violence and discrimination. Lynchings of Chinese were common and a large number of attacks occurred. The most prominent act of violence at the time was the Rock Springs Massacre, in which a mob of white miners killed nearly 30 Chinese immigrants because they were accused of taking the white miners' jobs. In 1875, Congress passed the Page Act, the first restrictive immigration law. This law recognized laborers from Asia as well as Asian women as undesirable people. As a result, they would be barred from entering the United States. In practice, the law was enforced to institute a near complete exclusion of Chinese as well as other Asians, women from the United States, preventing male laborers from bringing their families with them or establishing family here. The Chinese Exclusion Act. The Chinese Exclusion Act of Yeah, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 prohibited virtually all immigration from China, the first of many immigration laws to do so on the basis of race or national origin. Minor exceptions were made for select merchants, diplomats, and students. The law also prevented Chinese immigrants from naturalizing as US citizens. The Gary Act of 1892 further required Chinese to register and secure a certificate as proof of their right in the United States. If they sought to leave or re-enter the US, imprisonment or deportation were potential penalties. Although racial discrimination intensified in the exclusion era, Chinese immigrants fought to defend their existing rights and continued to pursue voting rights and citizenship. The children of Chinese immigrants began to develop a sense of themselves as having a distinct identity as Chinese Americans. Ray will also be going into further details about the different laws that were targeted towards the Asian community and the immigrants. The Korean War and the Vietnam War, as well as the present day. Immigration of Asian Americans was also affected by US war involvements from the 1940s to 1970s. The Korean War and Vietnam War brought a new wave of Asian American immigration, as well as people from Korea, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia arrived here. These wars ripped apart these countries, making life for the inhabitants extremely hard. This caused thousands and thousands of Asians to escape in the search for a new beginning. Many people found it here in the US, and family reunification became a driving force in Asian immigration as families reunited in America. As for the present day, Asians recently passed Hispanics as the largest group of new immigrants in the United States, and the number will keep growing year by year. So it is safe to say that Asian Americans have made and earned their place in this country, despite having endured a lot of mistreatment from our government as well as other entities. Sorry.
So I just thought that it would be a bit easier to have a timeline of all of the laws that were the immigration laws that affected the Asian community. So from the 1790 Naturalization Act to the 1917 Immigration Act, these were laws that were deliberately put in place to limit Asian migration, as well as their ability to become naturalized citizens of the US. And the 1924 Immigration Act, in particular, put in place national origin quotas, which limited the amount of people from each country, specifically Asia, that can enter the United States. And from the 1943 Magnuson Act to the 1952 McCarran-Walter Immigration Act, these are the laws that started to open up immigration opportunities for Asians until we reach the ultimate opening up, I guess. And so that is the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, also known as the Hart-Celler Act. And the main goal of this act was to fill in jobs that were open in America, specifically cheaper labor, and it also pushed for family reunification post World War I and II to promote social stability. And so basically what it did was it reversed the national origin quotas that was established in the 1924 Immigration Act, and instead put in hemispheric quotas, which divided the globe to the Eastern, Asia, Africa, and Europe, and Western Hemisphere, Western being the Americas, and also allowed for the beginnings of chain migration which is still very prevalent today. And to the right here is a breakdown of all of the visas that were being saved for each group. So at the very top would be the highest priority. So if you are the son or daughter of a US citizen, or you prove to be economically useful to the United States, you would be at the top of the list to gain a visa. And at the bottom were the unskilled labor force and refugees.
Okay, so I will be covering concept 2, which are the reasons for immigrating. Okay, so there's a wide range of factors that contribute to a person immigrating, and these can be categorized into 2 groups, being push and pull factors. And before diving more into that topic, this is just that these factors are different for everyone and are important for making everyone's immigration story unique. So, push factors are more of the negative reasons because they compel or push people to leave their current residence to settle in another. And then on the other hand, we have pull factors, and these are the positive reasons because it attracts or pulls people to move from their current residence to a new. And now hopefully you have a better understanding of what these factors mean. So now I will be talking about the leading factors of why people immigrate. So talking first about quality of life factors, these factors can easily influence someone to be pushed or pulled to immigrate because of the quality a country offers to support a life. So this could be like education, education opportunities, and medical services that are either accessible or inaccessible to a country could push or pull someone. And then next we have war-torn country factors. So socio-political factors can also push or pull one to immigrate from their residence whenever war and conflict are present. And then lastly, we have environmental factors such as natural disasters and climate change can also play an important role in one's immigration depending on the effects it has on them. So all in all, I just wanted to emphasize that these factors can be interpreted differently, but I felt that sharing the combination of push and pull factors makes it easier to understand and get a better perspective of like why people immigrate.
I'm sorry. So Derek and I will be sharing immigration stories that are very personal to us. For me, I will be sharing my personal immigration story. So a little bit more about me. I'm Filipino, and I was born in the Philippines and immigrated to San Diego in 2009. So that kind of puts me in a weird situation, being like kind of first gen, but kind of second gen. But anyways, my immigration story started a couple decades back, actually, when one of my great aunts married an American soldier, and through her started a long line of chain migration for my dad's family. And so in my dad's immediate family, his dad was the one who came here to San Diego first. And through that, he petitioned 3 of his children. And in this photo here at the bottom left corner, in the middle there is my dad holding 6-week-old me. So I was born in May of 2003, and in mid-June, he had to leave because his visa had gone through. And so once he got here, and received his green card, that's when he petitioned my mom and I. And it was about a 6.5-year wait. And so on November 6, 2009, this is actually the picture that my mom and I took on our flight to LAX. We got on a one-way Philippine Airlines flight to LAX and left the Philippines to be with my dad. And in this photo in the middle here, middle bottom, is kind of, I'm not in it, but it's a photo of my parents in the room that we lived in. So for a while, we lived in a 3-bed, 2-bath house that we shared with my lolo and my uncle and his family. And here I was exposed to the reality of how my dad lived in the US. So in the Philippines, he would send us, I didn't know this until recently, he would send us most of his paycheck. And so when we got here, November 2009, he barely had any clothes. He had like a couple shirts and a couple pair of shorts for home, and then the rest were his work clothes. And the rest of it he would send to us because school was not free. School is not free in the Philippines, at least like I went to a Catholic school, so we had to pay for that. But yeah, it's just kind of disheartening looking back and how we were so excited to finally be here. And it was so different from what we saw in the movies. And so for about 2 weeks after we got here, we lived off of $20. And because at the time my dad was the only one working. So we basically lived in a 10 by 12 room, pretty much paycheck to paycheck, until things started to get better. And I'd like to say that around the time that my sister was born, in 2012, that's really where we kind of started achieving the things that we want to. And now we're able to enjoy and experience the things that we want to together. This photo at the very right is a photo of our trip to San Francisco after Christmas. And yeah, I'm actually really proud of myself. When we went through this earlier, I was like very emotional. But the reason why this story is so important to me and why I get so emotional every time I share it is the fact that my parents sheltered me from all of these hardships. I didn't realize a lot of these things until recently, and I'm forever grateful for their sacrifices, and they're pretty much the reason why I keep fighting. And yeah.
Before I start my other story, I just want to say thank you, Ray, for sharing your story and your family story. We really appreciate and acknowledge what you shared with us today. But yeah, so to start off on this slide, I'll be sharing one of the many experiences that Vietnamese immigrants had to face during the Vietnam War. It was very common for many Vietnamese immigrants to arrive in America on a boat, thus being referred to as boat people. Within this group of people, my dad was one of them. At the age of 13, my dad, he just escaped Vietnam. The aftermath of the war resulted in political oppression and poverty, contributing to the many push factors for immigrating, thus pushing many Vietnamese immigrants to become refugees. To avoid this, his family agreed to flee Vietnam by any means necessary, meaning that they would have to flee legally by boat. His family had to save up to pay for an arranged time and place to leave at a fishing dock. It took about 3 tries to successfully escape. During each attempt, they were caught and the boat was destroyed. In other situations, many people would be punished by physical beating, but the worst that my dad got was having his boat destroyed. On the last attempt, he finally got on board of a small fishing boat, which held about 70 other people, exceeding the limit capacity by 3 times. The boat was only about 15 meters long and 3 meters wide, and it was not the type of boat to withstand the open waters and the overflow of refugees. Conditions were not suited for a comfortable and safe travel. People were packed together like sardines while having to face harsh weather, starvation, seasickness, and the stench from unhygienic conditions. On top of that, the estimated 3-day trip resulted to the boat being stranded in the middle of the ocean. And this lasted for about a week, not knowing whether they will survive or not. Another danger that many boat people had to face was the risk of running into armed pirates. These pirates, they would commonly commit acts of crime, such as stealing, murder, and rape. During that week, his boat was actually captured by Thai pirates. Fortunately, these pirates were not the type to commit these crimes. Instead, they actually brought his crew onto the commercial fishing boat that the pirates would use to travel in. These commercial fishing boats were actually a way to camouflage from the government in order to avoid being caught. My dad stayed on board for about 2 weeks, not really doing anything and just waiting for their arrival at their next destination. All the pirates really did was just fish all day, and they're kind enough to even provide a big pot of porridge to share with the refugees. When the time came, everyone had to leave the ship. To avoid the pirates being caught, they dropped everyone off about 1 mile away from the Malaysian shore and destroyed the small fishing boat. Destroying the small fishing boat was done to discard any evidence of pirate involvement, and the broken scraps and pieces were used to stay afloat. And it also allowed them to swim to shore. After arriving at shore, a village took notice and notified the United Nations personnel. These refugees were taken to a refugee camp in Songkhla, Thailand. For about 3 months, Andy and Sami settled at the camps, learning English until they were sponsored over to America to start their new lives.
So after their arrival to America, Asians from different countries and backgrounds all experienced common hardships and struggles that shaped the Asian American identity. So I will be talking about the concept of yellow peril. Just quickly, does anyone have any knowledge? Does anyone know what yellow peril is? If you're willing to share. I'll be reading through them later. I think just with respect to time, I'll just go ahead. And so yellow peril refers to the Western fears that Asians, specifically the Chinese, would invade their lands and disrupt Western values such as democracy and Christianity. With the increase in Asian immigration to the US, mainstream Americans, white Americans, feared the Asian invasion. So yeah, it's kind of similar to the Red Scare. Concerns over the differences in culture and the fear of tainting the white race with interracial relationships manifested in aggression towards anyone who looked remotely Asian. So a big example of this is Hawaii and the Asian farm laborers that worked in Hawaiian plantations. plantation owners initially went to Asia seeking labor in place of the more expensive American labor. And as Victor mentioned earlier, they would be given contracts stating that they would be brought over to work on plantations, and they would have to pay back the cost of their transportation to America. And basically, they suffered through long hours of backbreaking work under the hot sun for low wages and no benefits. And once laborers started noticing these unfair treatments, plantation owners turned to using diversity as a form of control. So they would pit the Koreans against the Japanese because the Koreans hate the Japanese for what they did in the past, that type of stuff. And since we don't really have time, I'll just put this link to the video. You guys would like to go through that. And to continue on, Filipino farm laborers in California built their own communities, specifically in Delano, that area, in the mid valley area, and they participated in leisurely activities such as hanging out in the taxi dance halls. So they would pay 10 cents to dance with white working class women who worked at these halls and even had intimate relations with them, even though interracial marriage relationships had been banned. And so basically, the surrounding white population around these taxi dance halls were concerned about these relationships, and they wanted to protect the white women who were working here and to protect them from having Filipino babies. And this ultimately led to the 1930 Watsonville riots, where mobs of white men went around attacking Filipino farm workers for dancing with white women at the dance halls. And probably the most infamous case of yellow peril and its effects on the Asian American community is the case of Vincent Chin. Back then, due to the oil crisis, many working class Americans opted to buy cheaper Japanese cars instead of the more expensive American-made gasoline cars. This led to the dismissal of thousands of laborers in the car manufacturing industry, and consequently, the development of hatred for the Japanese for causing them to lose their well-paying jobs. So on June 19, 1982, 27-year-old Vincent Chin, who is Chinese American, was celebrating his bachelor's party for his wedding, which was 5 days later, at a bar in Detroit, Michigan, when he got into an altercation with Ronald Ebens and his stepson, Michael Nitz, after they verbally attacked him, mistaking him for Japanese and blaming him and, quote, other people like him for their dismissal from their jobs. Eben and Nitz hunted down Chin after he left the bar and repeatedly struck him in the head with a baseball bat and fled, leaving Chin with an open wound on his head. And Chin would pass away 4 days later after having been in a coma. And the day that was supposed to be one of the happiest days of his life, his wedding, instead became his funeral. And Ebens and Nitz were later charged and convicted of manslaughter after agreeing to a plea deal with the judge. So it was supposed to be second-degree murder, and it was reduced to manslaughter, but it didn't really matter. Nitz and Ebens weren't given any jail time. The only real punishment they got was a fine of $3,000 and 3 years probation. And I think something that angers a lot of the Asian American community, and just like everyone in general about this, is what the judge said when he sentenced Ebens and Nitz. And he, Judge Charles Kaufman, stated that, quote, "These aren't the kind of men you send to prison," end quote. And this started riots and all of that stuff, or protests for the unfair treatment, and actually kind of started the I don't want to say coalition, but the coming together of all of these people of color communities to fight for justice. Yeah.
So most of you probably heard of the term model minority, right? At first glance, would it seem like anything offensive? It paints Asian Americans to all be studious, successful, smart, good in science and math, just all in all, a minority who excels in education. These are all positive attributes that uplift them, so how in the world could it be negative? People often see this term as unharmful and rather positive since it supposedly shows the successes of Asian Americans, but actually it creates a wedge between other racial minorities. The model minority myth suggests that all Asian Americans have fully achieved the American dream as well as an elevated status compared to other minorities. It only focuses on a wealthy subset of the AAPI community. And this depiction of the community is not true, as Asian Americans had to fight through centuries of systemic discrimination and racism. And this term only pits people of color against each other and ignores the reality of it. So in this slide, it reinforces harmful stereotypes about other minority groups. For example, it only compared Asian Americans and African Americans to each other and how they overcame racial issues in the past. Remember, issues that white people created. And it was used as a tactic to make a direct response to the African American civil rights movement at the time. And since the end of World War II, many white people have used Asian Americans and their perceived collective success as a racial wedge. And this was to minimize the role racism plays in the persistent struggles of other racial ethnic minority groups, especially Black Americans. And you can even say that the myth is ultimately a means to perpetuate anti-Blackness. And it kind of feels like Asian Americans are being used as a pawn of some sort to play into this controversial, messed up game to put other people of color down. And then it suggests that the US has always been a welcoming place for people of Asian descent, when in reality it ignores the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, Japanese internment in the 1940s, mass lynchings, discrimination, everything. It kind of feels like Asian Americans are being used as a pawn, as I said. I wanted to get into how model minority myth still affects Asian Americans till this day and how it paints them as a single monolithic group, which implies that they're all the same. That's extremely ridiculous to label all Asians this way, as there's so much diversity and experiences of AAPI heritage and more than 50 ethnic groups with different cultures and histories in the United States. It perpetuates stereotypes such as being smart, likely natural in STEM, wealthy, hardworking, self-reliant, living the American dream, docile, submissive, all that stuff. It causes pressure for people in this community to meet and achieve these unrealistic standards, and they feel like they're forced to keep this image and idea alive.
All right, so this is the last topic of our presentation, but since we're a bit over time, I did share the link to the chat, and attached to that is also a video of kind of going over the concept of yellow face and media representation. And yeah, so we're gonna wrap it up right here. And we'd like to thank you guys for coming to our summit.
And if you want, you guys can scan the code right here and leave feedback. And thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here.